Greetings, embers, newbies, and the peekaboos. Welcome to Back to Ashes. I am your host, Phoenix. For those of you that are new to the channel and you begin to love what you are hearing, please join our family by hitting that subscribe button and make sure that your notification bell is set to all. That way you do not miss an upload. I would like to take a quick moment and recognize the elite members of Back to Ashes. Thank you all so much for your long-term support. I always tell you, you are the pillars on which this channel stands. I deeply appreciate it. Without further ado, it is time to go back to ashes. For once we arise from the ashes, we are bigger, brighter, stronger, and a happier person every day. Sit back, relax, kick back, grab a snack or tuck in and get warm, and prepare for your dose of vocal melatonin entitled True Stalker Stories. Right after this intro, there will be an ad. I'll read the first story, there will be an ad. And after that, there will be no more ads within this video. Disclaimer, this video is for educational and entertainment purposes. This happened a few summers ago when I was living in Montreal. I lived in Mile Inn and worked in the Plateau, two adjacent neighborhoods that were usually full of tourists, students, and people just hanging out. I walked to and from work through a series of pretty tree-lined alleyways that were peaceful and quiet and full of cats. Anyone familiar with the area will know the kind of alleyways I am talking about. I always felt safe because there were so many people hanging out on their back balconies overlooking the alleys in the summertime. Occasionally, I ran into people strolling with their dogs or kids messing around, or drunk dudes would catcall from their balconies. But typically, my walks to and from work were uneventful. That is, until this day. I left work at about 4 o'clock in the afternoon and began my walk home. After I crossed Mont Royal, a main street, I could pretty much take one long alley walk all the way home. So that's what I did. I didn't have my headphones in or anything. I was just walking and daydreaming and taking in the beautiful summer afternoon. I didn't sense a single thing was off. I walked for about 5 to 10 minutes before I heard someone yelling from their balcony up ahead. My French is pretty bad and they were far up, so I didn't catch any specifics. I ignored it and kept walking. 2 minutes later, this big guy came bursting out of his back gate and into the alley, talking hurriedly to me in French. When he realized I am Anglo, he switches to English and says quietly, "There's somebody following you. He came into the alley behind you and has been ducking behind garages and garbage cans. We could see him from our porch." He points up to where his companion is still sitting, a few stories up on a little balcony with a pretty good view down the alleyway. I was hesitant and said it must just be someone walking their dog or something, and that I hadn't seen or noticed anyone behind me. I didn't really know what to make of the situation, but I thought he must be mistaken. The man shakes his head and yells down the alleyway to get the fuck out of here, or something to that effect. But nothing happens. Nobody appears. So he starts striding down the way I came, and that is when a man stands up from where he was hiding, ducked behind the wall of someone's garage. He was skinny, had long brown scraggly hair and a leather jacket on, even though it was like 30 degrees Celsius outside. I made eye contact with him for a split second before he took off running back down the alleyway, and he had these wild, angry eyes that gave me chills. The balcony Samaritan booked it after him, but the guy was gone just like that. We weren't sure what to do or what we could even say if we called the police. So, Balcony Samaritan walked me onto Park Avenue, a close-by main road, and I thanked him profusely for saving me from whatever the alley stalker had planned for me that afternoon. It still scares the shit out of me that I didn't sense a single thing was off. Didn't have any feeling of being watched. Nothing. Anyways, crazy man who ruined my peaceful alleyway commute. I hope I don't ever run into you again. So this isn't too crazy, but it had me so scared at the time I was crying. I was 16, going home from a friend's house. While I was getting on the train, this man was following me. He was maybe 45 to 50 years old. He didn't speak English too well, but well enough that I could understand him. So I was getting in the bus, and like a lot of people there, nothing to make him stand out just as of yet. Well, I go to sit down, and he sits down right next to me, which was unsettling because there was other open seats, but I'm not new to creepy people in public places. So I just stayed there. I was by myself, and it was about 6 p.m. at this time. I'm in the winter, and I live in Midwestern USA, and so it was already dark out. Then this man starts talking to me, and I was in the corner seat, so I couldn't move unless he got out of his seat, or I just went over him. He starts off asking me where I'm going when I say I'm going to meet some friends. I didn't want him to think I was going home, and he actually followed me there. I thought it was strange for him to ask me where I was going, and I was already paranoid as hell. Then he asks me for a hug, and of course I say no. He then goes on to tell me he needs a hug because his wife just died and he is sad. I started ignoring him at this point, and he goes on to say that his daughter also just died. He starts making shit up and I'm ignoring him. After about 20 minutes, I get off the train and am super thankful to get away from this strange man. That's not the end though. The man got off at the same stop. At this point, I was waiting for a bus to come to bring me to my final destination, and the man gets off and follows me to the bus stop. Waiting for the bus with maybe 2 other people and this man. He doesn't approach me, but as the bus pulls up, he comes and puts his arm around me and tells the other people that this is his girlfriend, referring to me. No one really said anything, and we got onto the bus. I started getting super nervous and grabbed my phone from my bag in case I needed to call 911 or something if this man keeps following me. He again sits by me, and I don't sit where I'm trapped in this time. He starts saying he can walk me to my friends so I get there safe, and I said no. Then he says I am going to bring you to your friend's house, so that was verified that he was indeed going to follow me, which sucks because I wasn't actually meeting friends. I was going to my house. I start panicking and want to call my mom to pick me up from the bus stop instead of walking there. And to my luck, my phone is dead. It's dark. I'm alone. My phone's dead, and some weird-ass dude is trying to follow me. He continues to talk to me about I don't even know what. And the bus was empty at this point, besides just us and the bus driver and one other guy. And bless this other guy's soul. I kept looking at the other guy very intensely, and the panic really started to set up, and I was not answering any conversation of the weirdo at all anymore. The other man comes up and tells the weirdo to leave me alone or he is going to call the cops, and that I clearly didn't want to talk to him. Weirdo gets very aggressive and is telling him to fight him and cussing him out and all this other stuff. Then the next stop comes and the other guy physically removes the weirdo from the bus. I was actually really happy. I thanked the guy so much, and luckily it ended good. It was still very uncomfortable, and seeing how aggressive the weirdo got, I don't doubt his intentions were not good. So yeah, weirdo from the bus and train station. Let's not ever meet again. This is a weird story after my neighbor man stalking me. It's just a phone stalker after we lived through hell because of that crazy-ass fool. This super happy fun time experience takes place about 4 years after the neighbor ordeal. I guess my ever so endearing demeanor attracts unhinged folks. Anyway, I started working for a new job just after Christmas. The company I worked for took over an account at a building closer to my home, so I transferred to the newly acquired location. After my first week there, some of the people began to ask about my relationship status and took interest in me. This little ray of sunshine happened to be single back then, but I was not ready to mingle. I was focused on work, my family, and school. I was only there for about 3 months and didn't end up liking the new location, so I left for a better suited job. Imagine my shock when some of the workers wished me an early happy birthday and luck at name of new job here. In a completely clown shit move, the manager had disclosed where I would be working. As I'm leaving, I see something I'd never noticed before. A phone list of employees with first and last names printed in the break room. One of many what in the actual fuck moments to come. I let the manager know he needed to remove me from that as I would no longer be working there, and two, would not be okay with that even if I continued to be an employee there. He shrugged it off with the attitude of someone who assumes an upset woman is having her time of the month, rolled his eyes and took it down. I was beyond thrilled to start my new job when the calls started. Looking back, there had been maybe 3 prior to what I believed was the beginning of this, and they weren't as persistent, so I didn't link them together. Side note, I have a tendency to bleach every red flag white, so please trust your instincts and scary movie run bitch run yourself away when red flags are presented. I began to receive phone calls from a blocked number every week, only Friday through Sunday, but with holidays. Yay. And always between the hours of 1 to 4 a.m. I have a weird thing about my phone being near me and left on at night ever since my sister's accident. When she had said accident and they tried to tell me about her, my phone was off and in the other room. For someone who wants to ask why I didn't just shut it off or put it away, this is why. I will virtually throat punch anyone who says something like, just shut your phone off, in the comments. I'm an insomniac and a light sleeper, so the calls always woke me up. I tried answering them without saying more than a hello, but always just heard breathing. This had gone on for 3 weeks, when my birthday came. I worked my new job. Then the rebel that I am went and got a red box to take and have a pizza and movie night with my parents to celebrate. As I'm scrolling through the ridiculously dull selection of red box titles, my phone rings. One of the girls from my new job tells me that a guy who identified himself as my boyfriend had come and dropped off a pizza, flowers, and card for my birthday. Confused, I relayed to her I did not have a boyfriend. She nervously laughs and says that she found it strange my boyfriend wouldn't know I was off work, and that he would need to leave the stuff there rather than give it to me in person. I thanked her, got the movie, and didn't give it too much thought. It was my birthday, so that was a problem for tomorrow. Next day, I opened the card at work, and it's tickets. Photocopy, not the actual ones I could have used, to a place 4 hours away. In the card there was a lengthy poem and details of a trip, complete with dates and a hotel name the person planned to take us on. Creep factor raised much? No idea who this is from. When I asked the coworkers, they could only give a generic description. The weekend comes, and like clockwork, the call comes in. I decide not to answer, and now just decline the call. Life goes on. My mystery and knight and shining potential restraining orders never came back to my work, and the calls continue. These calls went on for 3 years. I'll save you 2 insignificant life bits, but I have changed jobs and moved in those years. The calls did not stop until winter of last year. I tried answering and asking who it was. I tried screaming and cussing them out. I tried having my friend answer. I tried having males answer and threaten. Basically, I tried more than Sam I Am tried to get you to eat green eggs and ham. A few times they would have a song queued up to play when I answered. The more it went on, the more emboldened they got. They started heavy breathing. Picture a cross between masked Jason from Friday the 13th and a first-time masturbator, and then whispering my name. At one point, they ended up graphically describing what they dreamed of doing to me. I called the cops, who said without an actual threat, they can't do anything. Dreams don't count as a threat, I guess, is what I was told. I called the phone company to see if they can tell me the number of the caller, who told me they can't disclose that, and to call the cops. I ended that phone call with the cheery, "When you see someone wearing my skin as a suit on the news, remember this. Have a great day." I am very debating on changing my phone number. Personal legit reasons why I hadn't done this before, but also seriously concerned of who the fuck this is. For someone to be committed to calling you every weekend of their life for that long is extremely frightening. One morning, after another 2 unknown missed calls, I wake up to a text from an unknown number. I'm greeted with an unsolicited dick pic. Fun fact, no one wants an unsolicited dick pic, folks. I responded, stating if whoever it was ever contacted me again, their photo and phone number would be placed on Craigslist, men seeking men, so they could get their own share of dick pics. I reverse searched the number, and lo and behold, get a name of someone who I briefly worked with at the beginning of this story. It all starts to click that the calls started once I began that job. This guy would have known where my new job was and about my birthday, since the coworkers I had working there wished me an early birthday on my last day. Him sending that pic solidified that he was the caller. That's all, folks. A big O anticlimactic ending. I never saw or heard from him again, thankfully. So weird, obsessive old boss, guy, please leave me the hell alone. This was back in 2013 when I was living in New York City as a 23-year-old. I was living with my best friend from college on the west side near Times Square in K-Town. I was going through some tough times back then, as I was unemployed at that time. I had a lot of time, so I would go on walks by myself to clear my head. One night, I was feeling especially depressed, so I decided to walk to K-Town to grab a drink by myself. I'm Korean, by the way. I walked into a Korean bar and I got some weird looks from the waiter as I asked for a table by myself. After ordering a couple of soju bottles, I was feeling pretty drunk, so I decided to walk back home. However, as I was exiting out of the bar, this Korean guy followed me. He looked very normal. Just like a nice Korean guy, really. He told me that he saw me drinking at the bar by myself and that he would love to walk me home to make sure I get home safe. I politely declined. After all, my apartment was pretty close, but he insisted, and he looked so harmless that I decided to take him up on his offer. We walked like 10 minutes, I think it was, and it was quite pleasant. We were both a little drunk, but I remember talking about all sorts of things. Nothing personal. When we finally arrived at my apartment, I thanked him and wished him farewell. Now, my apartment was a 5-story walk-up, and there was a main door where we needed a key to open to get into the building. No, there wasn't a doorman. I didn't think much of it, and inserted the key to open the door and went in. The door takes a while to close shut, and it was my mistake for not checking before I went up the stairs. While I was approaching the second floor, I heard someone grab the door from closing, and I heard footsteps coming up the stairs. I literally got goosebumps all over my body, and I felt like I was in danger. As I started to pick up the pace, I heard the footsteps going faster up the stairs. I lived on the 5th floor, and I start to run up, clutching my keys in my hand. The guy started to run up the stairs as well, and I can literally hear him getting closer and closer to me. This all happened in a couple of seconds, but it felt so long. I finally got to my floor, and as I tried to open the door, I looked back and literally saw the guy's head on the staircase. I rushed to open the door, and I managed to close the door right on his face. My heart was beating so fast, and I didn't know what to do at that point. It was already 3 a.m., and my roommate was asleep. Luckily, he didn't knock or anything, so I decided to just go to my room and hope that he's gone home. At around 7 a.m., my roommate woke me up. She said that there is a man standing in front of our apartment door. My heart sank, and I explained the whole situation to her. She and I went to the door and screamed that we were going to call the police if he doesn't go home. I looked at the peephole, and he told me that he will only go home if I gave him my number. We then called the police and saw him being escorted out. My roommate had to go to work, so she left the apartment and called me a few minutes later. She told me that she saw the guy speaking to the police downstairs. Apparently, he tried to lie to the officers that I'm his girlfriend and that we got into a fight. My roommate went up to them and explained to the officers that I do not have a boyfriend and that she doesn't know him at all. The police let him off with a warning. About 2 hours later, I heard a buzz from the main door downstairs. Maybe it's the police. Surely it can't be him again. I answered the intercom, and I was in shock. It was him again. "Just give me your number and I'll go away," he said. I warned him that I'm going to call the police again if he doesn't leave. A couple of minutes later, I heard ferocious knocks on my door. He must have gotten in when someone was entering the building. I was so scared at that point, so I immediately called the police. Unfortunately, the guy ran away before the police got there. The worst part about this experience was that my roommate and I were so scared to leave and come back to our apartment. I would have anxiety every time I come home, worried that I might see him in front of our apartment door. For about a week, the police escorted us when we felt scared. Bless them. I never saw him again, but it was one of the scariest moments of my life. All right, I'll be the first one to say, and I'm not afraid to say it. Yes, I have been stalked by a girl. She was in my class in engineering. She was a typical first bencher who always studied hard, spoke less, introvert, liked by all lecturers and students. Everyone had a high regard of her. Whereas I was a last bencher, quite naughty in class, extrovert, and friendly with people. Yet, I was very good at studies and very much focused about my goals in life. I had my mind to become an IAS, or Indian Administrative Service, officer when I was at school and made constant efforts, like reading the Hindu newspaper daily, making notes of NCERT textbooks, studying prescribed books, etc., to achieve my goal right from class 11. Once in a class during our first year engineering, our lecturer asked each of us to tell about our goals. Since I was quite vocal and took pride in becoming a civil servant, I spoke at length about my goal of becoming an IAS officer. Unfortunate for me, she too had the same goal. I had never spoken to her in person. I just knew that she was a typical first bencher who studied well. In third year of my engineering, some of my friends and I started a club for science enthusiasts in college, and were looking for members who were interested in joining the club. Then, A mutual friend, who was a fellow founder of the club, spoke to me about getting her into this club. Without giving it much thought, I agreed since she was good at studies. This led me to know her. Though I had never noticed her much, being in the same club gave a chance to interact, and I got to know that she was an IAS aspirant too. I used to give her tips about how to study for the same. That was the limit of my interaction with her. I thought of her as a very dedicated student and a good friend. That's about it. Never did I try to go any extra mile with her. I had my own last benchers group with whom I used to hang out, always, both guys and girls. I never told her or involved her in any of my personal stuffs or things that would make her feel like I was interested in her at all, like chatting for long hours or going to movies or typical dating stuff. My interaction with her was limited to discussion about our club, IAS things, and friendly conversation. It was our last day at college. She came near my room and gifted me an edited, swap my face with movie stars who had played roles of an IAS officer in a movie, photo frame. I thought it was a great gift, though badly edited, and thanked her for it, and went back to my room and took my afternoon nap. When I woke up, I was in for some shock. I had received 60 plus WhatsApp messages from her number. She had narrated how she had a crush on me from initial days of college. And, of course, how her liking for me increased when she got to know about our common goals. Everything was described in intricate detail, anecdotes about various incidents. I thought it was great of her to remember things in detail, but I made it very clear that I have no such interest in her, and she was just a good friend. In fact, I thought of her as a sister. She always gave me that sisterly vibe, like never bunking class, always sitting in first bench listening to the lecture intently. I did not tell her then that I thought of her as a sister because I thought it would be rude on my part to say to someone who had confessed her big crush. Moreover, I liked some other girl. I didn't think it was necessary for her to know that. I just had to convey that I was not interested in her, and I did. Then started stalking days. Within a week after I completed my engineering, I had to join to my work in a different city. This made things worse. She used to ping me every now and then in WhatsApp, inquiring me about every single detail, like if I had my lunch or not. She told me that she doesn't feel like eating until and unless she knew that I had already had my food. Though it might look nice on the outset, I felt it was very immature and started ignoring her texts. Is it only me, or do others too feel suffocated when someone who you are not intimate with starts texting you so much? Her messages increased exponentially with every passing day, though I told her very calmly I was not interested in her. She kept on messaging me, saying that she too was doing that as a friend. But this incessant texting made me irritated. I had to concentrate both on my work and my dream of becoming an IAS officer. In addition to this, her constant pestering made me feel like it's a nuisance. Failing to make her understand that I don't like such constant messaging, I blocked her on WhatsApp, thinking that getting blocked will give her a very clear signal of me not liking her and will make her stop messaging me. Meanwhile, I hadn't told any of my friends about her pestering me. I thought it would spoil her good girl image. But things took an ugly turn from there. She started obsessing over me and started emailing me since I had blocked her on WhatsApp. Some people from her hostel, people whom I don't even know, also started emailing me wondering why I was doing this to her. Those emails used to be very lengthy, describing how I'm hurting her by ignoring her. I took pity and unblocked her on WhatsApp, but this time I made it very clear that I not only don't have any interest in her, but I always thought of her as a sister. Believe me, Indian guys don't just call a random girl a sister. They do mean it. She agreed and started adding the suffix brother to every sentences in her text messages. This continued for 1 week, and then again, things started becoming the same as they once were. She not only told that she cannot think of me as her brother, but she also proposed me for marriage and would send her father to my house to convince my parents to agree once I had achieved my goals. That's it, I thought. Things had gone too far. I had to put an end to this. I told her sternly that things are taking a wrong turn here. I don't want you messaging me or disturbing me, and wanted to just be left alone. Therefore, I blocked her again. This did not stop her, though. This is where it started feeling like an emotional attachment or emotional harassment to me. She started calling me from different numbers and texting me from those numbers. Until now, I have blocked more than 20 different numbers of hers. She had texted me from her parents' number, friends' numbers, and had bought many SIM cards as well. Some of her friends, whom I don't know personally, texted me that I was being very cruel to her and should unblock her and listen to her once. Once I unblock her, I used to get the same old, "Do you really not like me? I'll send my parents to your house to talk about marriage." No matter how much I told her that I do not like her, things did not change. All of this was excruciatingly painful for me, emotionally. I thought I had enough of this and started informing some of our mutual friends about this. They initially denied it, telling that a good girl of her stature can never do such a thing. I had to show them the screenshots as proof. Only then did they start believing me. They too started convincing her to leave me alone. But it was all in vain. I unblocked her several times again, convinced by her friends that she had moved on and would not stalk me anymore. But in the end, it would again come down to, "Do you really not like me?" I had had enough of it. I would give her chances to reform her ways, then end up getting abused. How stone-hearted I am, how insensible I am, etc., etc., etc. This constant mental abuse had taken its toll on me. Some of the effects were, number one, I started fearing girls, especially introverted ones. One cannot say what are they thinking inside their mind. Though I know all girls are not the same, I find it difficult to talk to a girl openly now. Number two, my studies started deteriorating. I gave IAS prelims exams once and failed. I could not come to terms with it for a while. I had worked so hard for this from class 11. Number three, I was in acute depression. Constant abusing by WhatsApp, texts, calls, SMS, emails, and lobbying through mutual friends had made me depressed all the time. Number four, with depression came insomnia. I found it hard to sleep at night. I was always thinking if those things she had told me while abusing me, were they actually all true? These were a constant inner fight within myself. If what I was doing was right or not, should I give up resisting her and accept which was opposing to my inner feelings? Number five, my self-confidence hit the greatest low I had ever felt. An IAS aspirant is supposed to be very confident, but in my case, things were taking exact opposite turns. I lost faith in myself. Number six, I started speaking to psychiatrists online through various apps, asking to help me with this emotional abuse. I was scared to go meet them directly because going to a psychiatrist is still a stigma in India. Number seven, when her abuse and harassment reached new levels, I even thought of going to the police to complain, along with some of my mutual friends with all the evidence. I researched online. A man cannot complain against a woman for stalking him. No section in Indian penal code makes this a crime, but vice versa is a punishable crime. This made me still helpless. Number 8, I started staying aloof. I no longer derive pleasure in doing things which I used to enjoy earlier. I started avoiding social gatherings. I started becoming an introvert. I kept in touch with only a bunch of close friends. Number 9, I started fearing calls from unknown numbers, thinking that it will be her calling from some unknown number just to irritate me again. I still don't pick calls from unknown numbers if the number of the caller is not displayed in Truecaller. Number 10. Meanwhile, I had left my job after a year and 3 months to prepare for the IAS exam exclusively. My failure in first attempt had disappointed my parents and my brother. I had no courage to tell my parents about this incident. I feared they would feel that their obedient son failed to achieve his dreams for some small problem caused by a stupid girl. Believe me, it was not so small of a problem for me. Number 11. When I shared this entire story with some of my close friends, they started saying that I was lucky that a girl herself was stalking me, when the normalcy is for a guy to stalk a girl. They made fun of me for that. They all took it as a joke without realizing how disturbing it really was for me, mentally and emotionally. There were some positives that I can take out from this episode, which lasted for more than 2 years. Number 1, I started to have a great respect for girls who get stalked by guys. Now I know what exactly they go through. A little stalking might be okay with anyone, but when it reaches a level that one starts feeling abused, it is not okay at all. Number 2, I always thought of me as not so emotional of a being. This whole episode brought out a different side of me. I now know who exactly I am and what exactly do I need from life, and more clearly, what or whom I don't need. Number 3, since I had been a victim of depression for almost 2 years, I now can empathize with my friends and family who are suffering from depression. I have a special effort to talk to my friends who are going through depression. I support them, saying it's just like some other disease and one should go talk to a doctor. I make sure that they never, ever feel lonely. Number 4, I realize that not all silent and decent looking girls are actually good, and not all outgoing and extrovert guys are bad. I don't judge people quickly now. Number 5, recently I shared this whole episode with my brother, who basically told me to stop picking up calls from unknown numbers. He was very supportive and told me that I did a good thing by sharing this episode with him and some of my friends. He told me that it's good that I kept some of my friends informed about these developments. Number 6, there is a dire need for making some of Indian laws gender neutral. I have nothing against feminists, nor am I a misogynist. I only believe laws should protect everyone equally. When laws are gender neutral, only then can they bring harmony into society. I still get messages. Even after blocking, SMS will be received, and I get a notification, a message from block contact, from her that she has moved on and that I should forgive her and should be normal to her again. I have forgiven her, but I don't think I'll make the same mistake of trusting her again and start being friends again. I just don't need it. I still get abusive messages that I am hurting and stuff. I just tell her to fuck off. Yes, I used it, which translates to get lost, only after 2.5 years of her drama, and leave me alone. I just don't care anymore. I felt it was necessary for me to share this with you because stalking is not okay at all, be it a girl or guy who undergoes it. When lines are crossed, you've crossed the limit. It has the capacity to disrupt your life. I request to you all, never stalk people. So I've been living in Paris for the past 8 months and have felt relatively comfortable with my surroundings. I was coming home from a club on the first train that goes to my town. This is around 5:30 a.m. Note, I was quite drunk and tired and just wanted to sleep, and I was wearing clothes for going out. There was this guy on the platform who tried to talk to me. I walk over trying to reach the next train car over but failed. There were 2 open seats left, so I sit in one of them. He decides to sit in the one across from me. So he starts telling me, "I really want to marry you. I don't even want to fuck you or anything. I just want to be your one and only. Please, will you do the pleasure in becoming my wife?" As he is saying this, he is caressing my thigh. I am genuinely uncomfortable and try to sink down into my chair. I'm just like, no, I'm not interested. I have a boyfriend, which is the truth, by the way. So he retorts, if you had one, he would be here with you, taking you home. My boyfriend lives 5 hours away, close to the border between France, Germany, and Switzerland, so he cannot be there. I explain that to him, and he says he's not a good boyfriend to leave me here all by myself. He then says that he's a really nice guy and has a lot of money, and he'll take care of me. I told him I'm not interested. Then I get to my stop, and he follows me out. After I beg for him to go to his place, he continues talking to me, and I start shivering because I didn't bring a jacket with me. He sees this and forcibly puts his jacket on me. He says that I'm not feeling well and that he will walk me home. I begged him not to. He tries to talk to other people to get him on his side. We reached this one lady who saw my discomfort on the train. We explained both of our sides to her for about 2 hours. I kid you not. She finally says, since you're not the boyfriend, you can't walk her home. I will. I was so thankful for her. We left and we had to take her bus to work. I thought I was safe, but sadly no. So I start walking to my apartment. I live about 10 minutes away from the station. I was about halfway there when I heard a whistle. I turned back, and lo and behold, it's the creep. He runs up to me and continues to say the same shit and begs for my number. He does this all while he's caressing my face. I slap his hand away and tell him if he doesn't stop, I will hurt him. He continues, so I threaten to call the police. Only then does he scamper off. I came home at around 8:30 or 9 and cried my eyes out. Creepy sudden marriage proposal dude. Let's not ever meet again. I never felt like I was necessarily in danger, but it was a very unnerving experience nonetheless. I met a guy through a dating app. We only exchanged a few messages before I decided I wasn't really feeling it. The conversation felt very unnatural and forced, so I stopped replying. A few months go by, and I get a new match on the app. He looked kind of familiar, but I was still really new in town, so I knew the chances of me having met him already were slim to none. We talked for a few days and set up a date for that Friday night at a local Mexican place. We talked more about our interests and told little stories about ourselves. I got a weird feeling because every once in a while, when I am telling him something about myself that I was sure I haven't told him already, he was able to finish the story himself. It happened about 3 times during the course of the date. We were about halfway through our meal when he admitted that we had talked before, when he had a different hairstyle and used a different name on the dating app. I didn't believe him until he showed me the profile picture he had used with the old name. When I asked why he did that, he said it was because he was testing something. He said he had been told in the past that women like the nice guy, and so he thought he would give that a try when he first messaged me. but I blew him off. So instead of just letting him go, he waited a few months, grew his hair out, and made a new profile using a different approach to talk to me. I get up from the table and leave the date. A few weeks go by, and the guy keeps messaging me and trying to apologize. I'll admit, I was avoiding healing from some other stuff I had been through and convinced myself that maybe he was worth getting to know if he had tried so hard just to get a date with me. I saw him a few more times after that, but it became really obvious that we were just not a good fit. He was awkward in an uncomfortable way. I always felt oddly tense around him, and even an hour with him felt like it drug on for days. Eventually, I stopped returning his messages. I received 1 to 3 messages a day from him between the dating app, text message, and Facebook for that first week. It tripled for the next 3 weeks after that. Then, silence for about a month. I thought he'd finally gotten the picture. Until one morning, I opened my apartment door to a letter laying on the floor in front of me. I had been out with friends the night before and didn't get home until around 1 a.m. The letter was not there when I came home. I left for work the next morning at 7 a.m., so that means this letter had to have been left on my doorstep between 1 a.m. and 7 a.m. I was immediately creeped out. I live on the 3rd floor of a locked apartment building. No one can get into the building without a key or a resident physically letting them in. I had no idea how someone could leave me a letter, but somehow he had found his way into the building and walked up 3 flights of stairs to my apartment in the early morning hours. The letter was mostly nonsense. He said things like, "I can treat you like a queen, but you won't give me a chance." Or, "I knew women didn't really like nice guys. You're no better than all the other whores." Typical toxic masculinity bullshit. But still, it scared me a little. I still had his number in my phone, so I texted him and told him to leave me alone and wanted to know how he had gotten into my building to begin with. I had already contemplated contacting my property manager to see if they could change the locks. He said someone had left the door propped open, and he thought it was the universe telling him we were meant to be together. I told him that wasn't happening, and I never wanted to see him on the property again, or I would call the police. He promised to back off, but told me he still knew we could end up together. There was a few months of silence. I'd gotten back together with my ex, and everything was going great. I had all but forgotten that guy even existed. Until one day, as I was pulling out of the parking lot of my apartment complex, he rode by the entrance on his bicycle. I immediately froze. Last I knew, he lived on the other side of town and didn't have access to a vehicle. I went the entire day trying to shake off this weird feeling. Then I received the message I had been dreading. He started off just saying, "Hi," but that was followed with a rapid succession of texts, each one angrier than the last. He kept yo-yoing between calling me names and swearing we would be together soon. I took screenshots of the messages, then blocked him on everything social media I knew he had. I sent the screenshots to my boyfriend and told him everything that had happened, just in case. The following week, almost every morning as I was leaving for work, I would see him riding on his bicycle. Eventually, I learned that he had rented out an apartment in the same complex as me, just 1 street over. I started staying at my boyfriend's more or having him stay with me. I put a notice on all my neighbors' doors asking them not to let in any unknown man into the building for any reason. I even started carrying a taser even though they technically aren't legal where I'm from. He hadn't done anything particularly terrible, and I consider myself lucky given the kind of things a lot of other people have been through with stalkers. But Just writing about it now still gives me chills. I'm not sure why he ever stopped, but after a few more months or random ride-bys and anonymous late-night phone calls that I'm assuming were from his friends' phones, complete silence once again. It's been that way for about a year now. I'm moving into a new place with my boyfriend in a few months, so I'm hoping that'll be the end of things entirely. And that, dear Embers, brings a close to these true stalker stories. I would like to take a moment and acknowledge the subscribers of Back to Ashes. Thank you all so much for your support. I appreciate it as the days go by. For the first timers and the peekaboos, thank you all as well. Without your support and presence, I would not have a voice and there would not be a Back to Ashes. I thank you all deeply. If you are sleeping, I hope Slumberland is treating you comfortably. If you're awake, I hope you've enjoyed these selections. Until next time, please stay safe out there and stay vigilant. I'll be reading to you soon. Have yourself a good morning, a good afternoon, or a good evening. Peace, love, and light to you all.